Here's what you need to know about my family. They measure worth in titles you can explain at cocktail parties. My brother, Preston Novak, is a partner at a white shoe law firm in Manhattan. My sister, Carissa, married Dr. Gregory Witten, a cardiovascular surgeon who drives a Porsche and vacations in the Hamptons. My mother collects their accomplishments like rare coins, displaying them at every opportunity. And then there's me, Deidre Novak, 42 years old, FBI special agent in charge of the Criminal Investigative Division for the Washington Field Office. I run operations targeting organized crime, public corruption, and violent crime across the Mid-Atlantic region. I manage 300 agents. Last month, I coordinated a multi-state takedown of a human trafficking network that resulted in 47 arrests and freed 32 victims. My family thinks I'm a glorified police officer who couldn't hack it in a real profession. The misunderstanding is partly my fault. When I joined the FBI at 25, fresh out of Georgetown Law, I told my family I was going into federal law enforcement. My mother heard law enforcement and immediately thought beat cop. My brother, who'd just made junior partner, said, well, everyone needs to find their calling, even if it's not particularly prestigious. I never corrected him. 20 years later, the fiction has ossified into family mythology, Deidre, the black sheep. Deidre, who couldn't handle corporate law. Deidre, who carries a gun because she couldn't carry a briefcase. They trot me out at family gatherings like proof of their own magnanimity. See how we support her, even though she's not successful by our standards? The irony's exquisite. My GS-15 salary exceeds Preston's first-year associate compensation. My security clearance gives me access to information that would make Gregory's hospital credentials look like a library card. I've briefed the Attorney General, testified before Congress, and coordinated with the Secret Service on presidential security matters. But sure, I'm the family disappointment. The pattern established itself early and repeated with metronomic precision. When Preston bought his brownstone in Brooklyn Heights at 33, my mother threw a housewarming party. 3 stories! Original crown molding! And Preston negotiated the price down himself. That's the kind of sharp thinking that makes him such a successful attorney. I'd just closed a RICO case against a crime family that had operated with impunity for 15 years. I didn't mention it. When Carissa and Gregory got engaged, the announcement in the Times listed both their educational pedigrees and professional achievements in loving detail. At the engagement party, my mother introduced them to guests as my daughter, who graduated magna cum laude from Wellesley, and her fiancé, who completed his residency at Johns Hopkins. She introduced me as my other daughter, Deidre. She works for the government. The phrase works for the government carried the same emotional weight as volunteers at the animal shelter. Worthy, perhaps, but not noteworthy. What kind of government work? People would ask politely. Law enforcement, I'd say. Their eyes would glaze over. The conversation would shift back to Preston's latest merger or Gregory's published research on minimally invasive cardiac procedures. I let it happen, partly because operational security made discussing my actual work complicated, partly because watching my family's elaborate performance of success was more entertaining than participating in it, and partly because I'd learned a long time ago that people who need to announce their importance usually don't have any. Real power doesn't need press releases. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I was in a SCIF reviewing surveillance footage from a corruption investigation involving a state senator and a construction company. The evidence was damning. Wire transfers, recorded conversations, a paper trail that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. My deputy director poked his head into my office. How's it looking? We've got him. The case is airtight. Good. The U.S. attorney wants to move on this before the end of the year. You available to brief her next week? I'll make time. He nodded, then grinned. Your brothers still think you're a meter maid? I'd made the mistake of mentioning my family's perception once at a happy hour. It had become office legend. As far as I know, I said. You ever gonna tell them? Why would I? Because it's hilarious? Because they're idiots? Because you run an office that could crush their entire social circle if we wanted to? All true, I agreed. Still not interested. He shook his head. You're a better person than me. I'm really not, I just have different priorities. The invitation arrived on Wednesday. Join us to celebrate Madison's graduation from Princeton. Family photo at 2 p.m., reception to follow. Madison was my niece, Carissa's eldest daughter. 22, summa cum laude, heading to Columbia Medical School in the fall, a legitimate achievement. I was genuinely proud of her. I texted back, I'll be there, congratulations to Madison. Carissa's response, wonderful, wear something nice. Gregory's department chair is coming, and we want to make a good impression. I looked down at my FBI raid jacket hanging on the back of my door. Something nice to my sister meant Ann Taylor and pearls. To me, it meant body armor and a tactical vest. I typed back, I'll do my best. Saturday arrived with the crystalline brightness of late May. The graduation party was at Carissa and Gregory's house in Potomac, a colonial with a circular driveway, professional landscaping, and enough square footage to host 50 people comfortably. I arrived at 1:45 p.m. wearing black slacks and a blue blazer, professional but civilian. My service weapon was locked in the car's gun safe, per my usual protocol for family events. My FBI credentials were in my purse, though I had no intention of producing them. Carissa met me at the door. Deidre, you made it, and you look presentable. Thanks. Madison around? She's changing for photos. The photographer wants everyone at 2 o'clock sharp. She lowered her voice. Preston's bringing his new girlfriend, some associate from his firm. Very impressive. Harvard Law. Good for him. And Gregory's parents are here. His father just retired from his cardiology practice. Very distinguished career, 40 years. I nodded. Last week, I'd supervised an operation that dismantled a drug trafficking organization moving 50 kilos of fentanyl monthly through 3 states. But sure, 40 years of cardiology was distinguished. The house was already filling with guests. Princeton alumni, hospital colleagues, family friends, people in summer dresses and expensive watches, holding wine glasses, discussing sabbaticals and research grants, and whose child was attending which Ivy League school. I found a corner and observed. Preston arrived with his girlfriend, introduced to everyone as Rachel. She's a rising star in securities litigation. My mother beamed. Another credential to add to the family portfolio. Gregory worked the room with practiced charm, one hand on Carissa's back, discussing his latest publication in the Journal of Thoracic Surgery. His parents held court by the fireplace, radiating the quiet confidence of generational success. No one asked me about my work. No one asked me about anything. I was fine with that. At 2 p.m. sharp, the photographer, a woman with a professional camera and an assistant, called everyone outside for the family photo. Let's start with the immediate family, she announced. Then we'll do extended family groups. We gathered on the back lawn, arranged in loose rows. Madison in the center, naturally. The graduate. The star. She wore her Princeton gown, honors cords draped around her neck. The photographer studied us through her viewfinder, then started rearranging. Let's organize by achievement, she suggested. Creates better visual balance. Carissa jumped on this immediately. Wonderful idea! Madison in the center, obviously. Gregory, stand next to her. You're a doctor. Preston, other side, managing partner. They moved into position. Mom, next to Preston. Dad, next to Gregory. My parents shifted accordingly. The photographer nodded. Good. Now everyone else fill in behind them. Preston caught my eye, then looked at the back row forming. Deidre, stand behind Mom. You don't need to be prominent. The casual cruelty of it landed like a physical blow, not malicious, just factual, the natural order of things. The successful people in front, the rest of us providing background depth. I could have said something. Could have explained that I ran an FBI field office, that my prominence included a security clearance 17 levels above anything they'd ever see, that I'd spent last Thursday briefing the Deputy Attorney General on a corruption case that would destroy a state senator's career. Instead, I said, sure, Preston, wouldn't want to distract from the real achievements. He missed the sarcasm entirely, Exactly, you understand. I moved to the back row, next to my Aunt Linda, who sold real estate. Behind my mother, who'd never worked outside the home. Invisible, insignificant. Exactly where they thought I belonged. The photographer adjusted her camera. Everyone smile, this is a celebration. We smiled, the camera clicked. Gregory's pager buzzed. It was subtle, just a vibration on his belt. But I saw him glance down, saw his expression change. Confusion first, then recognition, then something that might have been fear. He pulled out the pager, read the message on the small screen. His face went pale. He looked up, scanning the back row until his eyes landed on me. Our gazes locked. I raised one eyebrow, a question. He looked back at the pager, then at me again. Then, without explanation, he stepped out of the front row and walked to the back. Gregory? Carissa's voice was sharp. What are you doing? I need to move, he said quietly. But you're a doctor. You belong in front. I belong back here, he said firmly. The photographer looked confused. Sir, we were arranging by professional achievement. I know, Gregory said. That's why I'm moving. He positioned himself next to me in the back row. His hands were shaking slightly. Carissa stared at him. Gregory, this is ridiculous. You're a cardiovascular surgeon. You've published 18 papers. You belong. I belong exactly where I am, he said, his voice carrying across the lawn. Preston was frowning. What's going on? Nothing, Gregory said. Let's just take the photo. But Carissa wouldn't let it go. Did someone say something? Is this about the hospital? Gregory, talk to me. It's not about the hospital, he said quietly. He glanced at me again, something like respect in his eyes. It's about getting perspective. My mother's voice. I don't understand. Gregory, dear, you've worked so hard for your position. So has Deidre, he said. The lawn went silent. What? Carissa said. So has Deidre, Gregory repeated, louder this time. I think maybe we've been measuring achievement wrong. Preston's girlfriend, Rachel, the Harvard law associate, was watching with fascination. Madison had her hand over her mouth, her eyes moving between Gregory and me. What are you talking about? Preston demanded. Deidre works in law enforcement. She's the special agent in charge of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division for the Washington Field Office, Gregory said, reading directly from his pager screen. She manages 300 agents. She runs operations targeting organized crime and public corruption. The silence was absolute. I didn't move, didn't confirm or deny, just stood there in the back row, watching my family's world realign. How do you know that? Carissa whispered. Gregory held up his pager. I'm on the hospital's emergency notification list. We just received an alert about a major FBI operation involving one of our board members. A corruption investigation. The alert specified we should cooperate fully with SAC Deidre Novak from the FBI Washington Field Office. He looked at me. That's you. Preston's face had gone slack. SAC? Special agent in charge, Gregory said. It's a senior executive position. She outranks pretty much everyone I know. My mother's voice came out small. Deidre? I could have deflected, could have minimized, could have let them rebuild their comfortable fiction. Instead, I said, he's correct, though technically I manage closer to 320 agents. We've expanded the division. You're in charge of the FBI? Carissa's voice pitched upward. A field office, I corrected, one of 56, but yes, I run the Criminal Investigative Division for the Washington area. For how long? 5 years as SAC, 20 years total with the Bureau. Preston found his voice. But you said you worked in law enforcement. You let us think. I do work in law enforcement, I said calmly. FBI is law enforcement. You made assumptions about what that meant. I didn't correct them. Why not? Mom asked, and there were tears in her eyes. Because it didn't matter, I said simply. I wasn't doing the work for your approval. I was doing it because it needed to be done. Gregory was still holding his pager. The alert says you're leading a public corruption investigation involving multiple state officials. It says all hospital staff should cooperate fully because the investigation is critical to national security. That's classified information, I said mildly. You probably shouldn't be sharing it. You're investigating someone on our board? I can neither confirm nor deny an ongoing investigation. He laughed. A short, shocked sound. That's an FBI answer. I'm an FBI agent. The photographer cleared her throat. Should we continue with the photo? Everyone looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. Carissa turned to me, her face flushed. You let us position you in the back row. You let Preston say you weren't prominent. I am in the back row, I pointed out. Preston was right. I don't need to be prominent. The work speaks for itself. But we've been treating you like... She stopped, unable to finish. Like I was unsuccessful? I supplied. I know, I noticed. Why didn't you say something? I thought about that. About 20 years of condescension, of being introduced as the other daughter, of watching my family's elaborate performance of status. Because, I said finally, I learned something in the FBI that you apparently never learned in your prestigious careers. Real authority doesn't require recognition. Real power doesn't need validation. The people who need to know what I do, the Attorney General, the Director, the agents I supervise, they know. Everyone else's opinion is just noise. Preston had found his lawyer voice. That's not fair, Deidre. We didn't know. You didn't ask, I corrected. In 20 years, not one of you asked what I actually did. You made assumptions based on your limited understanding of law enforcement, and you stopped there. That's not on me. That's on you. My mother was crying now. I'm so sorry. We're so sorry. Don't be, I said, and I meant it. You didn't hurt me. You revealed yourselves. And that's valuable information. Madison, who'd been silent through all of this, spoke up. Aunt Deidre, I had no idea. That's incredible. Thank you, sweetheart, and congratulations on Princeton. Medical school's going to be challenging, but you'll do great. Can I ask you something? Of course. Does it bother you that we didn't know, that we treated you like you weren't important? I considered the question. Honestly, no. Because I knew what I was. I knew what I'd built. Your opinion of me, all of your opinions, never factored into my sense of self-worth. I wish I could say that made me noble. Really, it just made me practical. Gregory was still standing next to me in the back row. I feel like an idiot. Don't, I said. You're a good surgeon. You save lives, that matters. But we've been condescending to someone who, he gestured helplessly, you brief the Attorney General? Sometimes. You run investigations that... He looked at his pager again. Jesus, this board member. If he's involved in what this alert suggests, I can't discuss it, I said firmly. You understand that, right? Of course, He shook his head. I need to recalibrate my entire understanding of you. That sounds exhausting, I said dryly. Maybe just understand that I'm good at my job. That's enough. The photographer, sensing an opening, tried again. So, should we arrange the photo differently? Everyone looked at me. I shrugged. I'm fine where I am. Gregory, you can go back to the front if you want. No, he said firmly. I'm good here. Preston was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. SAC, Special Agent in Charge. That's a senior executive position. That's what Gregory said. You could have been a lawyer. You went to Georgetown Law. You could have joined a firm. I did join a firm, I said. The FBI. Best decision I ever made. Rachel, the Harvard Law associate, finally spoke. I interned at Maine Justice my 2L summer. The SACs came in for meetings sometimes. We were terrified of them. You should be, I said. They have actual authority. She laughed nervously. Preston looked like he might be sick. Carissa had her arms wrapped around herself. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I told her. Let's just take the photo and celebrate Madison's graduation. That's what we're here for. But the arrangement is fine, I finished. Seriously, I'm comfortable in the back row. I've spent 20 years being comfortable with who I am, regardless of where other people think I belong. The photographer, bless her heart, tried one more time. I could rearrange by actual professional hierarchy, if that would help. No, I said, and my voice carried the authority I usually reserved for tactical operations. We're taking the photo exactly as we are. This is perfect. And it was. In its own way, it was perfect. The successful family members in front, doctor, lawyer, Princeton graduate, all exactly where they thought they belonged. And in the back, the FBI agent who actually held the power to destroy careers, dismantle criminal organizations, and coordinate with the highest levels of government. Invisible, underestimated, exactly where I'd chosen to be. The photographer took the picture. After the photo, everyone dispersed for the reception, but the energy had shifted. People kept glancing at me sideways. Preston tried 3 times to start a conversation, then gave up. Carissa looked shell-shocked. My mother cornered me by the dessert table. Deidre, honey, I need to understand. Why didn't you tell us? I did tell you. I said I worked for the FBI. But you didn't say you were in charge. You didn't say you ran operations. Would it have mattered? I asked gently. If I told you 20 years ago that I planned to become an SAC, would you have been proud? Or would you have tried to talk me into corporate law like Preston? She opened her mouth, closed it. I don't know, she admitted finally. That's honest, I said. I appreciate that. I am proud of you, she said. Now that I know, I'm so proud. Thank you, but Mom, you should have been proud when you didn't know, when you thought I was just a regular agent, because that work matters too. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. You're right, you're absolutely right. I'm so sorry. I hugged her. It's okay. Really, I turned out fine. I left the party around 5 p.m. claiming work obligations. Which wasn't entirely false. I had briefing materials to review for Monday's meeting with the U.S. Attorney. Gregory walked me to my car. That pager message, he said. The board member. Without giving me details, should I be worried? If you're asking whether your hospital is implicated, no. This is about individual corruption, not institutional. That's a relief. He paused. Can I ask you something? Sure. Did you know I'd get that message? That I'd see your actual position? I smiled. No, that was coincidence, lucky timing. Or unlucky, depending on perspective. Maybe both. He nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm glad I know now. Even though I feel like an idiot for not knowing before. You're not an idiot, you're just someone who made assumptions based on limited information. We all do it. Yeah, but my assumptions were condescending and wrong. True, I agreed cheerfully, but you're learning, that's growth. He laughed. You're not gonna make this easy on me, are you? Why would I? You spent 15 years treating me like I was barely competent. A little discomfort is good for the soul. Fair enough, he held out his hand. For what it's worth, I'm impressed. Genuinely impressed. I shook it. I know you are. That's why I'm not angry. You're not malicious. You're just status obsessed. But you can work on that. I will, he promised. I drove home through the late afternoon sunshine, thinking about the photo, about my position in the back row, behind the real achievements, about Gregory's shocked expression when he read that pager message, about 20 years of being underestimated by people whose opinions had never mattered. My phone rang. Work number. Novak. SAC, it's Mitchell. The state senator just lawyered up. His attorney wants to negotiate. Of course he does. Tell the U.S. attorney we're ready when she is. Our case is solid. Copy that. See you Monday. I hung up and smiled. Tomorrow I'd be back in my office at the Washington field office, coordinating operations, briefing senior officials, doing the work that actually mattered. Today, I'd stood in the back row of a family photo, exactly where they thought I belonged, and somehow that felt like victory. Not because I'd proven them wrong, though I had, but because after 20 years, I'd finally proven to myself that their validation had never been necessary. I was successful, I was powerful, I was exactly who I needed to be, with or without their recognition. And that was the only achievement that